some pretty big announcements come out of Meta. Of course, Meta is Mark Zuckerberg's platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all of the Meta universe, the metaverse. And the statements that have come out of Mark Zuckerberg really over the last few months, and maybe you could even say the last year, have seemed to be presenting a sort of changing tide that's happening within social media.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
The fact checkers have been too politically biased. That goes to what we've been saying. It goes to our own experience. I know it goes to your experience out there that's watching, that you saw things that were demoted, shadow banned, or disappeared or fact checked because it wasn't even necessarily Facebook themselves, but this team of fact checkers that they had were all left of center and all targeting conservative voices.
And now we've seen Facebook say, we give up, we're changing things. Mark Zuckerberg clearly trying to make some inroads with Trump putting in someone like Dana White, again, the head of the UFC, who you've seen speak at the Republican National Convention. You've seen speak over the years. You've seen him welcome President Trump to UFC events to thunderous applause. Maybe, again, he was doing that when it was not popular to be doing it. And now he's on the board of directors of Meta. That is a big deal and a huge win for conservatives.
That's even bigger to me than just the announcement of going to the getting rid of the fact checkers and going to the community notes, because that also shows they are putting people in leadership. There's a former Republican lobbyist as well as Dana White. Those are two individuals that will help shape policy. Yeah. And so that to me is the bigger news in this, that they are trying to change and seek a new path forward, as opposed to just saying, okay, here's some community notes, everyone should be happy now. I think that is a signal of big change at Meta.
Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice.
You may think he's lying and whatever you want to think you can think, but this sounds like someone who would have been censored on Facebook over the last 4 years.
Right.
Or the last 8 years, even at this point. This sounds like someone that would have been hit with, you're spreading false news that, other governments are trying to take down
or
your
even
post.
Our own government. He says over the past 4 years, the U.S. government has pushed for censorship. If you had have said that on Facebook, there is a chance that one of their fact checkers would have labeled that false or misinformation.
Well, he admitted that. He admitted that they were getting a lot of pressure from the Biden administration and even the Biden, when they were running for election, from spreading information about the laptop and all of that. He's admitted to all of that, saying, look, they did bow down a bit to the pressure, because when the FBI comes a knocking, you get a little nervous when you're one of these big companies. But you know what? I'm going to take this as a win.
Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that are skeptical. Is this just trying to deal the cards you're dealt, to play the cards you're dealt with a new president? Maybe, perhaps. However, this cannot be lost that this is a big win. You have to take these wins and then continue the pressure. Ensure that the people in the new administration work with these platforms to ensure that free speech continues. It's why when the liberals lost their minds over Elon Musk buying Twitter, it ended up being one of the best things for free speech, not just because of that Twitter platform, but now the fact that Mark Zuckerberg is even saying it will be like the community notes on X. He's pointing to the fact that's been a big win for free speech, and they realize they have to adapt and change if they want to stay in business.
Moving their content policy team from California to Texas. Now, we have seen the moves to Texas from a lot of these platforms. We've seen X start to do it. We've seen a lot of the others start to move their way to Texas, a lot of times to Austin, which can be a little more liberal leaning. But yeah, I assume what you'll have is a good group of people who will probably be leaving the platform because they don't want to move, and they simply don't want to move to Texas. And that could shift a lot of these policies.
Well, and Mark Zuckerberg did say in that announcement about the content-based review team going to Texas, he says, as we work to promote free expression, I think will help us build trust to do this work in places where there's less concern about the bias of our teams. So what you can also, I think, infer from that, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but that if they move it from the most liberal part of California, Northern California, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, then you move it to Texas, that they're not expecting, I assume, I'm not, once again, not putting words in their mouth, that not everyone is going to want to leave Silicon Valley in San Francisco area to move to Texas, wherever that may be in Texas. And by saying there should be less concern about bias of our teams, that they're looking for talent that are less biased, that maybe come from those areas of the country.
Maybe they're trying to find people that will go into the office again, too.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's probably also a part of it as well. But I think this entire thing from the leadership having board members that we know are of like mind. That is a huge deal. I can't reiterate that enough.
Yeah. On a platform that large, in a company as large as Meta, the board controls a lot. They can do a lot. They can get a lot done.
It's a publicly traded company. The board members have a lot of power by saying, hey, these moves you're making, company, aren't in the best interest of the shareholders. Because what's the point of doing things in interest of the shareholders? To raise the stock price. At the end of the day, that's how the corporate America, these big corporations, the board of directors gets to look it down and have oversight and say, what you're doing is going to decrease the value of this company to the people that own stock of it. And if they're going to revert back and try to push things that, one, are draining resources, really expensive, and don't produce any profit, and lose actual users of the platform, people like Dana White, who has built very large companies based off the principles that we hold dear, and as well as
punching people in the face.
Another person that's conservative as well. I think they will have a lot of power to try to keep that in check. Yes, obviously, you can't control a publicly traded company from the outside, but you can with your pocketbook, with your users. And I do think that that we are a big part of the reason this is a shift, not the administration. That we, the American people that are conservatives and believe in American conservative values, are a big part of the reason they are making this change.